Good morning, 8th grade. Mr. Franklin here. It is Wednesday, May 20th, 2020, and today we're going to be talking about the sit-ins. The sit-ins were a form of nonviolent civil disobedience that re-sparked the civil rights movement, involved that first generation of college students who were witnesses to they didn't literally witness the murder of Emmett Till, but they were 13, 14, 15. They were Emmett Till's age when Emmett Till was killed. And so they were moved to action by the time that they got to college. So let's jump right into it. Let's get right into the lesson, get down to business. All right. So sit-ins, and we're going to talk about nonviolent civil disobedience. So sit-ins were a form of protest that took place all over the country. They were started in North Carolina in February of 1960, and Nashville was the most prominent place where they took place, but they took place all across the South, all across the country. They were integrated. That means black and white college students were participating in these sit-ins together. Really simple concept. Black people were not served at the lunch counters of restaurants and in department stores. So back in the day, if you were to go to Walgreens, which is, we know, a drugstore, they would actually have a lunch counter there with a little restaurant inside the Walgreens, and you could, if you were white, you in the South, you could sit down and have a sandwich there, have soup there, have salad there, have a lunch, have a hamburger, etc. Black people were not served at these lunch counters all throughout the South. They were not served in restaurants. So what kids did was, in integrated groups, and black and white students would come in and sit down together, and they would simply wait to be served. When they weren't served and the police were called, the police would arrest them. A new group of integrated college students would come in and sit together. This provoked and started violence. You can see in this image right here, you have white students harassing students who are participating in the sit-ins. One of my favorite guys right now here is Jim Zwerg. He was a white guy who was involved in the Nashville sit-ins. Nashville was the most organized, the most popular, and out of the Nashville sit-ins came one of the most important groups from the civil rights movement, which was the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. All right, so make sure you know and understand that. So, nonviolence. This was a form of protest. It was intentional. So again, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, sometimes called SNCC, was created out of the Nashville sit-ins. SNCC, or the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, was involved in protests all throughout the civil rights movement. So again, the nonviolent protest is a form of protest that's intentionally not violent. It's not weak. It is intentionally nonviolent, and it intentionally exposes the violence of segregationists and racists. The Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee wants this violence, to take place so that they can bring to light the evil of segregation and Jim Crow. The lie of Jim Crow was that blacks and whites in the South were both happy, that blacks were content with the way things were, and that it was a social system that was set up in order to keep peace because the races couldn't mingle. That was the theory, and that was the claim. So the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee started in 1960. It was based upon the success of the sit-ins, and it existed to promote nonviolent civil disobedience. It was integrated, which means blacks and whites were together in this organization. What is nonviolence? Excuse me. Nonviolence is a potent weapon available to oppress people in their struggle for freedom. It was protest completely free of the use of violence, and it leaves open the possibility of conversion or compromise. Conversion means a change of heart, so the other side can change their mind, or compromise. The other side is moved so that they actually have to make a compromise. You're going to answer some questions, and you're going to be able to basically determine what one of the effects of nonviolence are. So what are some examples of nonviolent resistance? We have economic boycotts, massive demonstrations, that would be like marches. We have sit-ins are examples. And lastly, freedom rides, which we're going to have a lesson on freedom rides, but essentially what freedom rides were sort of sit-ins on interstate buses. So you see here in the north, this is actually in Chicago, you have black and white people in the north in Chicago protesting Woolworth, which was a drugstore at the time. Now, the thing is, in the South, those lunch counters and the drugstores would have been segregated. In the North, they wouldn't, but the protests still took place in the North in the forms of these protests outside of the buildings. What are the effects of nonviolent resistance? You have three possible effects. Conversion, which means a change of viewpoint by the opponent. You're going to need to pay close attention to the meaning of these. Conversion means when the other side, when the racist, changes their mind. I'm wrong. Coercion means when you're forced to change your behavior, when the demands are achieved against the will of the opponents because control of the situation has been taken away from them. And lastly, compromise. Compromise is when the opponents have neither changed their views nor been forced, but have concluded that the compromise is desirable. So that's the three effects of nonviolent resistance: conversion, coercion, or compromise. Conversion means a change of heart. Coercion means to be forced to change your behavior. And compromise means you have given a little because of the situation. All right, so that's the presentation for sit-ins and nonviolence. Make sure you complete all your work. Make sure you turn in all your end-of-the-year stuff from promotion. If you're in student council, we're going to have a meeting tomorrow, Thursday. I'll be sending out an email to all student council members. But tomorrow we are going to have a meeting for student council. We have some important things to decide for the end of the year promotion celebration. All right, guys, I love you. Stay safe. It's almost the end of the year. Do all your work. Get straight A's. Hasta la vista.